Okay, looks like we are live. Yo, 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 what is good, everyone? It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless one of the man, Lincoln Clay, coming back at you with a Christmas Eve live stream. How is everybody doing today? Start out by wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Hope hope you get the gift that you're looking for, or hope you brighten someone else's day by giving them the gift that they are looking for. So either way, I hope you have a good Christmas, whether you're on the giving end or on the receiving end. So I meant to do this. I meant to do this stream yesterday, but I was just exhausted. I think I worked 9 hours yesterday, which doesn't sound like much, but when you factor in all the Saturdays that I've worked, how many 6 day weeks that I've worked, and how many Saturdays that I've worked, yeah, I was pretty tired. So went and picked up my son yesterday, brought him home. He jumped on the computer. I fell out. Ice Queen Gaming. It's been a while. How are you? Um, all because of me being in YouTube jail. But it's good to be out. Thank you for popping in. Appreciate it. So, Shats, what is up? What's good, my guy? Ah, that's good. So, I got a few things to do today after this podcast. Got to go finish my Christmas shopping, and then got to go work out, and then I can sit back and enjoy some gaming. But I did buy a few games on Steam. I bought 3 games. I'm not going to mention what they were because I was less than impressed with these games. So I requested a refund on Steam, and I got refunds on all 3 of these games. So I'm probably just gonna go ahead and do what I should have done right from the start, and go ahead and buy Boneworks. Ice Queen Gaming. Okay, thanks, and off to my dad's later for some drinks. Okay, enjoy yourself and be safe. So I'll probably just go ahead and do what I should have done in the first place, and just go ahead and pick up Boneworks. Um, I already gave my son one of his Christmas gifts, and that was the 16 gigs of RAM for his PC. So he can at least meet the minimum requirements for Half-Life Alyx when that comes out. I think even though the minimum requirements are a little bit higher than what you would normally expect on VR games on Steam, it's still not that high. I mean, the only thing that really, the minimum requirements for Half-Life Alyx that stand out to me was the RAM, because you need 12 gigs of RAM minimum, and my son had 8. So I went and bought 16 gigs of RAM for him, and when I take him home tomorrow, I'll put him in his PC, and then that should take care of that. So me, I think I'll probably buying Boneworks probably will be my Christmas gift, and taking some time to enjoy some of these games. So, because if it wasn't for the Quest, I probably wouldn't have gotten much VR gaming in this past week because I would have been just too lazy to go fire up the computer, type in pin numbers and open up the Oculus app, open up the Steam app, because when you play Steam game on when you play Steam games through on your Oculus headset, the Oculus app has to be open, otherwise it's not going to run. So, but I'm a little rambling on a little bit, trying to stall for time to give a couple of more people time to get in here. But let's go ahead and get on with it. I get an email from Google let me know that I'm live. Well, gee, I didn't know I was live. Nice, Lincoln. You got some time off the game, I hope. It's mainly going to have to be today because I got today off and tomorrow off, and I go back to work Thursday. And tomorrow is going to be more of a recovery day as far as I'm concerned. I'm used to taking a couple of days off after Christmas or trying to take the entire week off. But where I work at, they only let so many people have the day off, and people have already put in for their vacation days every day this week. So we're already missing a few people. So no, the earliest I'll be able to use a vacation day will be January 6th. When I use vacation days, I like to take Mondays off because I love being able to sleep in on a Monday morning, and to me, taking a Friday off, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense because unless you're going out of town, I think it makes no sense using a vacation day on a Friday because whatever you're gonna do isn't gonna, it's not gonna happen until the evening unless you're going out of town. So with that being said, I think you should just go ahead and go to work. Start your weekend. Once you get out of work, enjoy the weekend, and then take an extra day on Monday to recover and sleep in and relax and enjoy yourself, and then get ready to go back to work Tuesday. So taking Fridays off, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense unless you're going out of town and you got to head out that morning. So ooh, ice cold. So, let's go ahead and talk about the subjects I got posted. So, I'm sure some of you guys were in there for the VR Link on Sunday, which I think we had a pretty good show. We did the VR Link's top 10, and I'm going to shut this crap off in a second. So while we were counting down the top 10 games, this was the VR Link's top 10. So what happened was we all submitted our top 10, and 7 Degrees of Gaming put together a point system where whatever the number one game was on your list gets 10 points, second gets 9 points, third gets 8 points, and so on. And so what he did was take all of our top 10s and added up scores. So whatever game had the most points, that was number one, and so forth, right on down the line. So that was the VR Link's top 10. It wasn't necessarily our top 10 that we unanimously voted on, because my top 10 was a little bit different from the VR Link. So it was based on points. So some of those in the VR top 10s, some of those made my top 10, some of them didn't, and it was like that with the other members of the VR Link. Some of their games was not in there, some of them weren't, some of them were. Ice Queen Gaming, I got Ghost of Tsushima theme from a code that was on the Ghost of Tsushima office Twitter account. Oh, that's nice. Hold on. From a code that was on the Ghost Tsushima office Twitter account. I'm going to have to look for that. So I wouldn't mind a Ghost of Tsushima Steam. Yeah, Shat. So it was a point system. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Resident Evil ended up being the number one game. and that game wasn't even in my top 10. And I think the biggest reason why it wasn't on my top 10 is because I didn't think it released in 2019. I thought it was a um, seemed like it was one of the launch games when the PlayStation VR came out back in 2016. Because I know for a fact, I bought my PlayStation VR day one, and in October 2016, and I gave it to my son for Christmas. And that morning, on Christmas morning, we were going through all the different tech demos that was there, and there was a Resident Evil demo there. So I don't think Resident Evil released in 2019. To my knowledge, I'm not even sure if there was even DLC for Resident Evil this year. So that was the reason why it didn't make my top 10. Um, like Beat Saber, even that didn't make my top 10 because it didn't release. As far as I'm concerned, it didn't release in 2019. Same thing with Star Trek Bridge Crew. It didn't release in 2019. I think using the Quest version might be a little bit of a technicality, but the game first released in 2017, I believe. So anyway, so that was the situation there. Um, so while we were counting down the top 10, naturally, everybody in the chat was having their conversations, giving their top tens, and there was a person in the comment section whose comment had caught my eye, and so I read the comment out, and they were like, "Oh, that's I'll just say his first name." And I was like, "Oh, that's Mark. He's the technical director at Sony London." And I'm like, "What?" And and I'm like, "Sony London that developed Blood and Truth?" Yep. Oh, holy smoke! So I was flattered that he was in the chat. But that speaks to that. I think that speaks to the work that Gamertag has been putting in, and the command that he's been respecting, the respect that he's been commanding throughout the VR community, because he knows he's friends with VR YouTubers that have way more subs than him, and through Gamertag and the VR link, I have met some pretty big YouTubers, Cass and Cherry, Nathy, Paradise Decay, to name a few. And these are all YouTubers with a lot of subscribers. Um, so I think I was slowly gaining VR subs, because it was almost like I was transitioning, because I think my sub count was going stagnant, and I think it was a case of, once I got away from the console war and started moving towards VR, I think the people who like the console war type podcast, I might have been losing that audience, but slowly gaining a VR audience. So it was like, I think it was a situation where I would lose a sub and gain a sub, and that made it look like my sub count was stagnant for quite a while, which I really didn't care about, because I'm really passionate about VR, and is way more positive about VR than it is, than negative. And in the console war, when you get caught up in that toxicity, it's like, oh, an Xbox said that, this person said this, Phil Spencer said that, Mike Ybarra said that, and I'm like, then I'll go jump on YouTube and try to debunk the stuff that they would say, or point out how they might be lying, or how it's a PR stunt, or how it's a trap to try to draw you into their ecosystem, that kind of stuff. Ice Queen Gaming, I'm looking forward to Christmas, but I will miss not having my husband with me this year. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You said you really like the Ghost of Tsushima trailer, yeah. Um, Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us 2, those are the only flat screen games on my radar. I'm not interested in anything else. I mean, Cyberpunk looks pretty cool, but it's not on my radar. That would Cyberpunk will be one of those games where I'd end up having to catch it on sale because I know I wouldn't finish it. I bought Days Gone, um, which I think was a good game, but I didn't finish it for two reasons. One, I'm too caught up in VR, and number two, I got caught up watching Sick Humor's podcast with his live streams of Days Gone. Um, so that's why I didn't finish Days Gone. I don't know if I'll ever come back to it. I really don't know. I'm being honest with myself. So anyway, but Mark of he's a technical director at Sony London, and again, it was flattering that he was in there, and he made a post on Twitter, um, thanking us for putting Blood and Truth in our top 10 because I think it made number 3 or number 4 on the VR Links top 10, and he tagged all of us, and now we follow each other. So I think that's pretty cool. So big shout out to Mark, technical director over at Sony London, developer of Blood and Truth. Would you mind running over your top 10? Yep, Shats, that was going to be next. I'm just going to read it. What's up, Mick? I'm just going to read it off of my phone because, I haven't gotten to that point yet where I'm like switching trailers in and out and that kind of stuff. The fact of the matter is I just don't have a lot of time to put into work to make these videos and streams have a professional touch to them. And I mean, honestly speaking, I watched Gamertag's Christmas chat this morning. Which was pretty cool, but at the same time, he looked like he was a little bit tired. So, and I'm tired too. The difference is he's still putting out way more content than I am, and he's still juggling his family life and all that stuff too. So, but okay, so let's go ahead and go over my top 10 again. I won't be working any trailers in because it's if I would be doing it if I did it today. I would be doing it for the first time, and it would be on a fly, and it would probably end up just being a mess. So I'll just run them off, and I'll say why I put the game in my top 10. So let's see, what do we got here? Okay, so here's my top 10 VR games of 2019. These are all games that was released in 2019. And the only one that might have an asterisk to it, I'll explain that when I get to it. But let's go ahead and start with number 10. That is Space Junkies by Ubisoft. This game made the top 10. It is a very fun game, and I think this game I think that it's a really fun game, and it's a shame that the game didn't do better, and I think that's 100% Ubisoft's fault for pricing this game so high. This game launched at $40, and I did try the beta, and the first time I tried the beta, it didn't resonate with me at first. Then I gave it a couple of more tries, and I was like, you know what, this game is pretty fun. And then when it launched at $40, I instantly said, no way. It for one thing, $40 was too much, and I know that I'm not the only one that's thinking like that. And because of that, I knew that Space Junkies was going to be a desert, and that's exactly what it was. Not that many people was in there playing the game, and I think some of those matches on Space Junkies won't start unless you have a full room. So that was like, in my opinion, it was pure greed. People try to say there were other reasons why the game didn't have a good launch. Other people reasoned that the game had a bad launch because there wasn't anybody to play with. Well, no shit, it wasn't anybody to play with because nobody bought the game. $40 is pretty steep. I don't know how many times I've got to say that price is everything, with especially when you're trying to appeal to the casual consumer. It is, Chats. It is a very underrated game. It is a very fun game. And I think that if Ubisoft would have priced this game fairly right from the start, if they would have priced this game at $20 right from the start, more people would have jumped on board with this game. It would have been people to play with right from the beginning, and it would have been a foundation for Ubisoft to build on this game to add content. But instead, the game flopped so bad that they basically, in my opinion, went into desperation mode to try to get people on board, and then offered the game for $15 for a limited time. One thing about video games is if a game gets off to a bad start, it is very, very tough to pull it off, to recover from it. And I think like No Man's Sky is one of the few games that had a terrible start and was able to bounce back from that terrible start. Shats, you said I bought it day one and felt burnt when they dropped the price. Yeah. I got the game on sale for $15. So when I got it on sale for $15, I bought it on both the PlayStation VR and on Steam. I bought it on both platforms with the intentions of being able to play with my son, where he's on the Oculus and I'm on the PlayStation VR, which we've done that a few times. I've got a couple of videos in my library, if you backtrack and find them, where I've got the camera on. You can see both my son and I playing Space Junkies. So, in that game, if you feel burnt right now, Chats, the game is on sale at Steam for $5 right now, and I think YouTubers have pretty much said it in so many words earlier this year that like Ubisoft, for the most part, probably abandoned that game. My guess is they probably it was probably a combination of not a very big user base and the fact that there's I'm not going to say the fact, but them supposedly working on Assassin's Creed in VR and working on Splinter Cell in VR for Oculus. And those are going to be big budget titles, so they're probably going to have to throw as many bodies as they can on those games to get them out within a decent time frame. So Space Junkies is a fun game. It is on sale for $5 at Steam. It is a game that I recommend. So I know you guys got $5 in your pocket. So if you got $5, head on over to Steam, pick up Space Junkies. I definitely recommend it. Not only that, I would love to see Space Junkies come to the Quest. To me, if you bring that game to the Quest, in like when Star Trek Bridge Crew came to the Quest, and it basically a stealth launch for $30. I thought the $30 was a little bit steep, but it included the DLC, and they caught a person who's an impulse buyer like me, and I'm a hardcore Trekkie dude. So when I saw that Gamertag was playing that game, that was a no-brainer. Shit, I hauled ass, and put on that headset, bought it, downloaded. Now, I did have a little bit of trouble firing the game up, going off the tracks, but Ubisoft needs to bring Space Junkies to the Quest. I think that will give the game some more life, and even if they brought it to the Quest alone and didn't make it crossplay with other platforms, I think the game would still do well. It will still be enough people there to play, because there's always people to play with on Dead and Buried 2, which is in my top 10, but I'll get to that. So there you have it. Number 10 is is Space Junkies. Number nine. Number nine on my top 10. Uh, I don't know if this made the list or not, but Ace Combat 7, the VR missions, that was number 9 on my list. And the fact of the matter is, if the entire game would have been in VR, it would have been higher on that list. That's the reason why I made it number 9, is because it only had 3 VR missions. I've only completed one of those missions, and I guess maybe I haven't played the other 2 missions, maybe because I'm trying to savor them or something, because maybe I feel like once I complete the other 2 missions, there won't be any reason to come back to the game, because I have no reason to play the flat screen version of the game. The flat screen version looks amazing. The graphics are amazing. You do see a totally different set of graphics when you see it in VR. With the flat screen version of the game, you're seeing current gen graphics. But with the VR version of the game, I'd say you're looking at maybe PS3 graphics. But nonetheless, it is still amazing, you know. And Shats, he said, it's a shame it turns me off. They are banning it. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But again, you know, I think that the game, I think the game will, you know, I think the game will get a breath of fresh air if they bring it to the Quest. Mick, you said excellent VR experience. I assume that you're talking about Ace Combat 7. And Shats, again, you said the other 2 are really good, man. I'm going to get around to playing them because I do have the Hodis flight stick. And as a matter of fact, when I bought that game, I refused to touch it until I got that Hodis flight stick. And I've talked about with VR before, you know, I'm going to touch on this when I talk about VR's impact, but I'll slip this in real quick. I think VR's impact right now, I think the 2 demographics that it's impacting the most is the teens that are around my son's age. If my son is 13 years old, it took PC VR to bring him back to VR because he got away from PlayStation VR, even though he originally wanted it in the first place. And people like myself, old dreamers, you know, all the stuff that I dreamed of doing as a kid, you know, VR has brought some of that stuff to life. And as a kid, at least if you're my age, as a kid, who hasn't dreamed of being like a fighter pilot or a race car driver, you know, an astronaut, whatever. And Ace Combat 7 was definitely it was definitely a must buy for me. I bought it strictly for those 3 missions. It made me sick to shovel out $60 for 3 missions, but I had to have it. I had to have that experience. And that first mission did not disappoint. Sitting on the deck of that carrier and listening to those thrusters as you hear those engines building up, and you see that first plane take off, and then they give you the green light to go ahead and take off, and that catapult takes you, you know, shoots you down that runway, and then you hear all that thrust, and then once you leave the carrier, it's almost like a peaceful silence. And then, you know, I'm looking out of the cockpit of the jet, and I'm watching the land get smaller as I'm ascending, and it felt so real. And even though it was only 3 missions, I think Ace Combat 7 brought a childhood reality to life. And it is number 9 on my list. And again, if it was a full game in VR, it would have been higher on my list. And I really hope they do add DLC, add some more missions at some point, you know, because I know those VR missions are exclusive to Sony. Sony has to know that people want more missions. So I'm hoping that they give it to us at some point. Mick, you said if it was a full game in VR, it could have been Game of the Year. I agree 100%. And Shats, you say hopefully next gen will bring us GT Sport and Ace Combat VR full games. I think it will. To me the X factor with GT Sport has to be VR multiplayer. And And God, I cannot stop talking about the potential of GT Sport with a full VR multiplayer. If anybody is a hardcore fan of GT Sport, then you guys have been watching GT Sport TV when they have these tournaments at the end of the year where the best racers in the world come together. You know, like Igor Fraga, Coque Lopez. You know, these are some of the best racers in the world. And it's like when I see those, I drop what I'm doing. I would love nothing better than to see one of these tournaments in VR or mix it, integrate it. And if Igor Fraga feels like he could be a better racer in VR, let him wear the VR headset. And if Coque Lopez prefers flat screen, then let him, do it. So let these people play to their strengths. So I would not only am I looking forward to a VR multiplayer in GT Sport, I'm hoping that they do something like that with these tournaments, because these tournaments have been a big hit, and I think these tournaments are sanctioned by the FIA, and they usually have personnel on hand as part of the ceremonies, award trophies, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, Chassis, right. It was worth the full price. And Chassis, you also say, oh, heads up, save someone some cash. H Combat 7 has the latest DLC listed in the VR category. I got burnt. Don't buy it. Flat only. Yeah, I definitely did the research, because I had a funny feeling that kind of shit might happen, that it might get advertised as being VR DLC, and then you go buy it and find out it's flat screen. So no, I didn't get burnt by that, because I had enough, I knew better to do the legwork to find out. Cyber Dragon, what is going on? Sup, chat, and our host Lincoln Clay. Merry Christmas, Cyber Dragon. How you doing, my guy? So, Ace Combat 7 is number 9. Moving on to number 8. Number 8 for my VR. Number 8 on my list is Path of the Warrior. This game is a VR take on old school games that I grew up with, like Double Dragon and Streets of Rage. And I absolutely love those games. I've told that story before about when I was young, when Double Dragon came out. I think Double Dragon came out in 1987, if I'm not mistaken, and I was 19 at the time. And the guy that I was best friends with, we used to go to this arcade called Putt Putt Golf and Games, and we would probably take like $25 each, $30 to this arcade, and we actually bought the discounted package where for like $5, instead of getting 25 tokens for $5, you might get like 50 tokens. So we would put our money together, and shit, we would have like close to a couple of hundred tokens, and we would stay in that arcade for hours. And Double Dragon was one of the games that we spent hours playing. Double Dragon and Street Fighter, and again, I absolutely loved Double Dragon. There was another game that I think the Double Dragon evolved from, was a game called Renegade. That was another one of my favorite games. It was a beat 'em up game. That was my favorite game before Double Dragon came along. So Path of the Warrior is a modern day VR take on those games. And the way they did the stealth launch at the Game Awards, announcing this game, I was going to buy it, and then I was like, let me think about it for a second, because it does have super cartoony graphics, and I'm all about photorealism with VR, because I think the more photorealistic a game looks, the more immersive it is, and the more realistic the experience feels. But then I thought about it, was like, this is a game that I grew up with, so why wouldn't I want to try it in VR? So I bought it, and I liked it, and it also helped that the game was cross-buy rather. Now, multiplayer isn't there yet. It's supposed to be coming, but people were talking about on Twitter that this game the multiplayer isn't ready yet because they had a deadline to meet for the stealth launch of the Game Awards. So I'm patiently waiting for the multiplayer, but in the meantime, the game is still a very fun game, and I've done a stream on it. So go check it out if you haven't seen it. Go check out my stream, Path of the Warrior. To me, is a very simple game, but a very fun game. So looks like Mark is aware that that he's being mentioned because it's titled Sony London was in the building. So he is the technical director of Sony London. So yes, Sony London was in the building when I did my stream. So again, big shout out to Mark. It was a pleasure, seeing him in the chat, and again, pretty cool. Let's see here. Check out a couple of more comments. Mick, you said you haven't played this one yet. The game is $15. It is cross buy. That was another factor in me getting this game. It is a fun game. So if it won't break your back to part with $15, I think it'll be a fun game. Quick fun, not I don't know how long the campaign is, but it's still a fun game. My stream that I did on the game, that's as far as I've gotten on it. And it's not much of a difference between the Rift version and the Quest version in terms of the graphics, in terms of the colors. I would probably say the Rift version is probably about that much sharper, but it doesn't matter. In my case, I would prefer to play it on the Quest just for the simple fact of being able to play it anywhere I want and no wires. And I never thought I'd see the day where I'd start wanting to play games on the Quest over the Rift, but there is some games that I have that I would prefer to play on the Quest versus the Rift. Let's see here. Chats, you said I'm 42 here. Remember the good old days? Yeah, I'm 52, Chats. So I'm an old buzzard. You said if I get a Quest, I'm buying it ASAP. Now, that's part of the VR impact that I'm going to talk about. So I'll get to that part when I get to the VR impact part. So let's move on. Let's see here. Number 7 is a Pistol Whip, and the simple thing. thanks, chat. The one thing that attracted me to that game is so simple. When I saw the trailer and saw that guy in the black suit, weaving through the obstacles, and then he came up and cracked one of the enemies with the pistol, I like that. That sold me on the game. When I play Pistol Whip, I am not on rhythm. The object of the game is to try to kill the enemies to the beat of the music. And I'm definitely not killing these enemies